The Wedding Favor, Part 6. Ella has no idea what Damien is talking about until she parses through her mother's last words. Damn. Sometimes her mother should think twice about how she words things. She means well. Ella is sure of it, but her words can so easily be taken the wrong way, like Damien just did. Ella scowls at him. I did not drop anyone 2 weeks before a wedding. My mother is a bit deluded on the matter. Damien stares at Ella for a few more moments, eyes still narrowed. Ella's shoulders sag. He doesn't believe her. She doesn't want Damien to think she's some wanton woman who's using him to make a guy jealous. The thought alone makes her stomach feel leaden. She hurries to explain, if only to make herself feel better. Mother has this idea that I'm going to end up old and alone, or worse, with the wrong guy if she doesn't set me up with someone she has pre-approved. Ella scrunches up her nose. The guys she approves of are just not my type. Damien's frown turns a bit less menacing, and this Paul is one of those setups? Yes. She's been trying to set me up with him ever since I came to the Christmas party by myself. Big mistake, that. I've been on 2 dates with Paul and he's horrible. He's so full of himself, has no sense of boundaries, and is just plain annoying. Ella looks down at her wringing hands. I do have to admit that he's part of the reason I wanted a date to the wedding. He's going to be there, and if I came alone, I'd have to spend the entire trip fending him off. Damien's frown disappears completely. Hang on a second. Are you talking about Paul Bocelli? Ella nods, grimacing at the mere mention of Paul, and Damien smirks. I can work with that. The smirk is still there when he leans in to whisper in Ella's ear. If I find out you're lying about this, I'm going to make you regret it. I'm not going to be used as bait by another woman. Do you understand? Damien's chest is hard beneath Ella's hand as she pushes him back. He moves away easily, but it's clear he's letting her push him away. I'm not lying, so that's fine. Damien shrugs and motions towards the host. I managed to snag us a table. It's not a coffee, but we can still have our discussion in relative privacy. His British pronunciation of the word privacy makes it sound more intimate. He waits until Ella agrees to the food before motioning the host to precede them. Apparently, Ella is now eating here, in a fancy restaurant at which even her mother couldn't get a table. Ella hesitates for a moment too long, and Damien puts a hand on her lower back to gently usher her through the door. The pressure at least gets her legs to move, even if her brain lags behind. The dining room is tiny. There is room for 4 tables, 3 of which are already taken. One table seats an elderly couple holding hands on the table as they stare lovingly into each other's eyes. The second has a lone occupant enjoying a bowl of soup. The third one has 3 men in suits who stare at Damien and Ella in silence as they pass. Ella starts walking to the 4th table, but Damien's hand curves around her side to turn her in the other direction. We're in the kitchen. Ella has to blink against the harsh lighting in the kitchen after the cozy yellow glow of the restaurant. There are 2 cooks bustling around the kitchen, working next to each other with barely a word said between them. They don't need to speak. They are so in tune with their craft and each other that when the older cook reaches towards the young one throws a salt shaker with barely a glance his way. The host announces their presence with a loud greeting as he snags a tablecloth from a cupboard near the door. Matteo, you have special guests! The older cook glances up and grins widely, but he doesn't let go of the skillet he's cooking with. Damiano, che bello vederti. Hai portato la tua ragazza? Damien laughs at Matteo and continues in what's probably Italian, or maybe Spanish. Ella has no idea. The only language she can adequately speak is English. Damien's laugh is still as enchanting as before, no matter what language he's talking in. While Damien and the older cook, Matteo, talk, the host busies himself with setting the table in a half-hidden corner of the kitchen. It's small and intimate, bracketed by tall cupboards and a wall, with a perfect view of the kitchen if you lean forward in your seat. Ella is mildly excited to see the cook's work. The host is a whirlwind of efficient skill, dressing the small wooden table like the ones in the proper dining room in under a minute. A bottle of wine and everything. He even calls Ella ma'am when he slides out a chair for her. Ella sits down with a thankful smile, much to the loud, accented indignation of Matteo. Damiano, you letting this man do your work for you? Go take care of your girl. He pushes Damien in Ella's direction, throwing a wink her way. Sometimes this guy needs a little guidance, you know? Mateo grins at Damien until Damien throws one of his deadly glares at the old cook. Mateo raises his hands in surrender and turns back to his skillet. Ella jumps a little when Damien's knee bumps into hers as he sits down. She angles herself away, even if that puts her other knee against the wall. The silence when they are both seated is heavy and awkward. Ella stares down at the embroidered edge of the tablecloth and at the glass mosaic containing a burning candle. Anything to evade Damien's eyes, burning a hole in her head. She's waiting for Damien to start talking, but all he does is silently tap a finger on the table and stare at her. Ella's mind grasps about for something to break the silence. Her mind snags on his objection to being used as bait. Did your ex cheat on you? Ella can barely contain the flinch at her own words. That's not the greatest question to start off with. Damien's tapping stops, and Ella glances up into a heated glower. Ella's heart skips a beat. She tells herself it's because of fear. But seeing the dark scowl on his face in the cozy, almost romantic setting of their too-small table is not as intimidating as it was outside. Discussing my ex is off the table. His low voice leaves no room for discussion. Ella jumps into a topic change. All right, any other rules? I was absolutely fine with the way you acted like my boyfriend earlier. The arm, Ella runs a hand over the top of her hair, remembering the kiss he gave her. She's certain she's blushing again. The hair thing. Ella shakes her head. I'm not sure I enjoyed you taking charge like that with my mother, though, deciding we were going on a date without asking me first. You looked like you wanted your mother to leave, so I facilitated that. He's got a point there. Before Ella can feel obligated to think of a response, Mateo appears next to their table with 2 shot glasses filled with a pink mousse. First course for the lovely couple. A mousse of salmon topped with a sauce of dill and lemon. Enjoy. He disappears back to his station without a backward glance, while Ella stares at his back, confused. But I didn't order anything yet. I didn't even see a menu. Damien is no help to her. He's already eating the mousse with a shrug. You don't go to Giovanni's for a la carte food. Matteo designs his menu with years of experience. You pay mostly for his expertise, not for the food. Ella glances at her food. It looks like any other mousse she's ever eaten, but she knows how expensive this type of restaurant is. First of all, I don't think I can pay for this. Damien snorts at her, but hides his laugh behind a cough. Ella stares at him in wonder. The snorting laugh seems so out of place in his entire dignified persona, but she wants to hear it again. He clears his throat before speaking. You're not paying for this, Uncle is. Oh, that makes the food more enticing. But still, what if I'm allergic to something? I don't know what is in this. Damien stops eating for a moment to look Ella over. You're what, 28? Ella scoffs at him. She does not look 28. I'm 24, actually. A tiny flinch betrays Damien's dismay. What's his issue? 24 is a perfectly normal age to be. You? 29. Doesn't matter. You're an adult woman with no problem speaking her mind. I figured you'd mention any allergies without prompting if it was a problem. Are you allergic to anything? Ella is not. See, not a problem. He motions towards her mousse. You should really eat your food before you hurt Mateo's feelings. The cook turns back to his fire in a hurry when Ella leans forward to look at him. She doesn't want the nice man to feel bad, so she takes a spoonful of mousse. It's not like anything she's eaten before. It's impossibly light in her mouth. It's as if she hasn't eaten anything at all, except for the explosion of flavor in her mouth. Salmon has never tasted like this before. Ella doesn't wait to eat another spoonful. It tastes even better with the sauce included, and her eyes fall closed as she hums in delight. Ella's eyelids flutter open again after a moment. Damien's spoon is hovering in front of his face, forgotten, as he stares at Ella's mouth. Did she spill? Ella licks her lips, and yes, she did. The mousse is so light she didn't even notice. Damien clears his throat and hurriedly eats the forgotten mouthful. You mentioned something about public displays of affection before your mother interrupted. He's not looking at Ella's face anymore. Is he embarrassed? Ella keeps eating, making sure Mateo can hear her appreciating his creation. Yeah, you did some great acting with my mother and me. Those were basic boyfriend displays. I was thinking of more affectionate things. Damien finally glances at her face again. more specifically at her lips. Butterflies flutter in Ella's stomach. Like what? Ella has to swallow heavily, mouth suddenly dry. Damien makes eye contact for a heartbeat, his gaze dropping to her mouth before he reaches over and runs a thumb over the corner of her lips. Slowly, lingering a tad too long to be friendly. Then he licks it, staring into Ella's eyes. You missed a bit. As if he didn't do anything at all, he finishes his entree with a smirk. Ella sits there and stares, her heart beating wildly.